Hello, my name is Lisa Jett, and I will be telling you the story of the Dragon of the North, a myth from the northern lands retold by Andrew Lane from the Yellow Fairy Book. Very long ago, there lived a terrible dragon that came out of the north and laid waste whole tracts of country, devouring both men and beasts. This dragon had a body like an ox, and legs like a fox, two short forelegs and two long ones. Behind and besides that it had a tail like a serpent. When it moved it jumped like a frog, and with every spring it covered half a mile of ground. Nothing could hunt it because its whole body was covered with scales which were harder than stone or metal. Its two great eyes shone by night and even by day like the brightest lamps, and anyone who had the ill luck to look into them because became bewitched, and was obliged to rush off his own accord into the dragon's jaws. In this way the dragon was able to feed upon both men and beasts without the least trouble to itself, as it needed not to move from the spot where it was lying. Its habit was to remain for several years in the same place, and it would not move on till the whole neighborhood was eaten up. All the neighboring kings had offered rich rewards to anyone who could destroy the dragon, either by force or enchantment, and many had tried their luck, but all had failed miserably. However, there was a saying that the dragon might be overcome by one who possessed King Solomon's signet ring, upon which a secret writing has engraved. This inscription would enable anyone who was wise enough to interpret it to find out how the dragon could be destroyed, only no one knew where the ring was hidden. At last, a young man with a good heart and plenty of courage set out to search for the ring. He took his way towards the sunrise, because he knew that all the wisdom of old time comes from the east. After some years he met with a famous Eastern magician, and asked for his advice in the matter. The magician answered, "Mortal men have but little wisdom, and can give you no help. The birds of the air will be better guides to you if you can learn their language. I can help you to understand it if you will stay with me a few days." The youth thankfully accepted the magician's offer. Each day for 3 days he drank 9 spoonfuls of a powerful potion, which made him able to understand the language of birds. Then on, the youth never felt lonely walked alone. He was always had company because he understood the language of birds, and in this way learned many things that mere human knowledge could never have taught him. One afternoon, when he had sat down under a tree forest to eat his lunch, heard two gaily plumaged birds discussing he could only find a King Solomon's lost ring. He sought help from the bewitched maiden, who at dusk would wash her face in a magic spring to stay ever young and beautiful. The birds were going to watch, so the youth resolved to follow the birds to the spring. When the birds flew away, the youth's heart beat with anxiety lest he could lose sight of his guides, but by running as hard as he could, he managed to keep them in view until they again perched upon a tree. The young man ran after them until he was quite exhausted and out of breath, and after 3 short rests the birds at length reached a small open space in the forest, on the edge of which they perched high tree. When the youth had overtaken them, he saw that there was a clear spring in the middle of the space. He hid himself at the foot of the tree and waited. When the evening light had quite faded, and the full moon was shining down upon the forest, came out of the wood a maiden, gliding over the grass so lightly that her feet seemed scarcely to touch the ground. The youth had never in his life seen a woman so beautiful. She went to the spring, looked up to the full moon, then knelt down and bathed her face 9 times. She then looked up to the moon again, and walked 9 times around the well, singing. She dried her face with her long hair and was about to go away. Her eyes suddenly fell upon the spot where the young man was hiding. The youth knew he had discovered and rose, saying, "Forgive me, beautiful maiden, if I have offended by watching you." Maiden answered kindly, "Come and spend this night in my house. You will sleep better on a pillow than on damp moss." The youth hesitated, but he heard the birds saying from the top of the tree, "Go where she calls you, but take care to give no blood, or you will sell your soul." So the youth went with her, and soon they reached a beautiful garden, where stood a splendid house, which glittered in the moonlight as if it was built out of gold and silver. When the youth entered, he found many splendid chambers, each one finer than the last. Hundreds of candles burned upon golden candlesticks, and shed a light like the brightest day. At length they reached a chamber where a table was spread with the most costly dishes. Table were placed 2 chairs, one of silver, the other of gold. Maiden seated herself upon the golden chair, offered the silver one to her companion. They were served by maidens dressed in white, whose feet made no sound, moved about, and not a word spoken during the meal. Afterwards the youth and the witch maiden talked pleasantly together, until a woman dressed in red came in to remind them that it was bedtime. The youth was now shown into another room containing silken bed-down cushions, where he slept delightfully. Yet he seemed to hear a voice near his bed that repeated to him, "Remember to give no blood." The next morning the maiden asked him if he would not like to marry her and stay with her always in this wonderful place. Was tempted, but he remembered how the birds called her a witch, and their warning always sounded in his ears. Therefore he answered cautiously and asked for some days to consider the matter. Maiden agreed, and to make the time pleasantly she took the youth over every part of her beautiful dwelling, showed him all her splendid treasures. The maiden took him to a secret chamber where a little gold box was standing on a silver table. Pointing to the box, she said, "Here is my greatest treasure, whose like is not to be found in the whole world. It is precious golden ring. When you marry me, I will give you this ring as a marriage gift, and it will make you the happiest of mortal men. But in order that our love may last forever, you must give me for the ring 3 drops of blood from the little finger of your left hand." When the youth heard these words, a cold shudder ran over him. He remembered that his soul was at stake. He was cunning enough, however, to conceal his feelings, and to make no direct answer. He only asked the maiden, as if carelessly, what was remarkable about the ring. She answered, "No mortal is able entirely to understand the power of this ring, because no one thoroughly understands the secret signs engraved upon it. But even with my half-knowledge I can work great wonders. If I put the ring upon the little finger of my left hand, then I can fly like a bird through the air wherever I wish to go. If I put it on the fourth finger of my left hand, I am invisible, and I can see everything that passes around me, though no one can see me. If I put the ring upon the middle finger of my left hand, then neither fire nor water nor any sharp weapon can hurt me. If I put it on the forefinger of left hand, then I can produce whatever I wish. I can in a single moment build houses or anything I desire. Finally, as long as I wear the ring on the thumb of my left hand, the hand is so strong that I can break down rocks and walls. Besides these, the ring has other secret signs that, as I said, no one can understand. No doubt it contains secrets of great importance. The ring formerly belonged to King Salom, the wisest of kings, during whose reign the wisest men lived. But it is not known whether this ring was ever made by mortal hands. It is supposed that an angel gave it to wise King Salom. Then the youth had a cunning idea. I do not think it is possible the ring can have all the power you say it has, he said. Do let me try to see if I can do wonderful things. The maiden, suspecting no treachery, gave him the magic ring. The youth asked her to him what finger he must put the ring on so he could fly. Oh, the little finger of your left hand, Maiden answered, laughing. Youth did so, and he soared into the air just like a bird. When the maiden saw him flying away, she thought he was playing, but the young man never came back. Maiden saw she was deceived, and bitterly repented that she had ever trusted him with the ring. The young man never halted in his flight until he reached the dwelling of the wise magician who had taught the language of birds. The magician diligently set to work at once to interpret the secret signs engraved upon the ring, but it took him 7 weeks to make them out clearly. Then he told the youth he must have an iron horse cast with little wheels under each foot. He must have huge iron chains and pegs made, and he must be armed with a spear as long and thick as a tree, which he would be able to wield by means of the magic ring upon his left thumb. And he told the youth how to use these to defeat the dragon. The young man thanked the magician sincerely and quickly flew home through the air. After some weeks, he heard people say that the terrible dragon of the north was not far off. The king announced publicly that he would give his daughter in marriage, as well as a large part of his kingdom, to whoever could free the country from the dragon. Youth went to the king, and everything was prepared as he requested. The young man rode upon the iron horse to meet the dragon, pushing the spear against the ground as if he were pushing off a boat from the land. The dragon had his monstrous jaws wide open. Youth trembled with horror, and his blood ran cold, yet he did not lose his courage. The iron spear upright in his hand, he brought it down with all his might, ran through the dragon's lower jaw, then quick as lightning he sprang from his horse before the dragon had time to shut his mouth. A fearful clap like thunder, which could be heard for miles around, now warned him that the dragon's jaws closed upon the spear. When the youth turned round, he saw that the point of the spear sticking up high above the dragon's upper jaw, and knew that the other end must be fastened firmly to the ground. But the dragon had got its teeth fixed in the iron horse, which was now useless. The youth now hastened to fasten down the chains to the ground by means of the enormous iron pegs that he had provided. The death struggle of the dragon lasted 3 days and 3 nights, and its withering it beat its tail so violently against the ground that at 10 miles away the earth trembled as if with an earthquake. When the dragon at length lost power to move its tail, the youth, with the help of the ring, took up a stone that 20 ordinary men could not have moved. He hit the dragon on the head with it, so that it lay lifeless before him. You can fancy how great was the rejoicing when the news was spread that the terrible dragon was dead. Its conqueror was received into the city with as much celebration as if he had been the mightiest of kings. The king's daughter was delighted to marry the hero, and the magnificent wedding was celebrated.